We are recording.
What? We're going? Oh, sorry. Yeah. This week in Outcast Haven's out. Let's just start over from the top. Can we just start over this whole thing? The whole podcast, just start over, rewind. I'm going to come in, and here we go. This week in Outcast Haven podcast, Tales of Aria. I thought it was Kingdoms. Kind of up. Outcast Haven podcast starts now. So I said this on the live stream, whatever we do every Tuesday for almost a year. I don't like the name. I'm gonna still love the set and love the cards, but I don't like the name. I liked Kingdoms better. It sounded better. Liked it. Was a big fan. Tales of Aria, not a fan.
It fit
Just saying
more.
that. Don't hate me. Don't hate me.
They've kept the titles of the sets like vague, which I liked because it didn't seem like specific to any group. Like they could have called this last set like, you know, stories from Solana or something. You know, it's like, okay. I mean, it just seems better when it's Monarch Kingdoms. I like it more, but I like the vague titles more. But that's just me too.
Right.
I will say there's an argument for the fact that Monarch also didn't really make a ton of sense because we didn't really have anything to do with a Monarch or anything, and the only thing we got referencing Monarch was that Prism was the like Monarch of Light or something, and that's kind of like funky too. Was the fact that like the title was
the king of all things evil. He is the monarch of the evilness.
Yeah, but it wasn't like anything. I don't know. There wasn't anything tying directly like the idea of like a monarchy really to the set per se. It was vague to the point that you could also say that like last set's vague title was kind of just didn't really tie into the set totally. So I don't know. I mean, it's better, to be fair. It's better than what they're doing in Dragon Ball, where things are starting to have like 12-word titles where it's like the Unison Warrior series boost something this that, and you're like, oh my, I'm not even gonna say it every time. It's just whatever the set number is basically what we've gotten to there.
Uwabigop. You gotta abbreviate it. Uwabigop is the new set for Dragon Ball Super.
Over 3-word card game titles, I'm 100% out.
Yeah.
One is great. 2, you get to 4, it's like now everything's abbreviated. Nobody says it anyway. I mean, people can't even say Crucible of War. It's just, hey, you got crew. Or if you're new to the game and a total noob, it's you got cow. No, nobody says cow. It says crew on the bottom of the goddamn card. That's why everybody says crew. For anybody asking, why do you call it crew? Because that's what it says on the bottom of the card.
The question, I think the question that people are going to need answered, and I think we're going to need a community-wide, you know, maybe we form a committee, because I think the trick with this set is, are we just going to call it Tales? We're going to call it Aria, or is it going to have to be called TOA? Because I don't like the TOA abbreviation doesn't have like a nice ring to it, and it's even worse if we omit the O. If we omit let's omit the O. We'll just go Ta. It's Ta.
No, there's not going to be an abbreviation.
But on the bottom of the card,
this one has a simple short name that is just easy to like say, like Tails. Do you have any Tails? Is there Tails in stock? Everyone's gonna know what they're talking about. I don't know.
Well, what will the card say?
But here's the thing.
Tails. Yeah, it won't say Tails.
No, but it could say. So, Welcome to Wraith was WTR. Everything else was the first 3 letters of the first word of it, right? Most of them were one word. So, is it gonna be Tal? Is it gonna be Tal? You got a box of Tal? I want my booster box of Tal.
Yep.
What's it gonna say in the bottom of the card? This is the pending thing that you've come to the right place for these types of questions. Outcast Haven, we ask the tough questions. What's it going to say in the bottom? What are we going to abbreviate it to? What is it?
You know what I think? I think that if you call it Tal, because that's what's on the card, I think that you are the same type of person who plays a different game and says stuff like, "Oh, I'm going to mind or what Thoughtseize." It's like, okay, you know, we're not playing that game, right? You just want to.
What do you mean Thoughtseize? What is Thoughtseize?
He uses
does that
that in
mean?
Dragon Ball. It's a reference to a magic card. It's the same. It's the same mechanic, but it's not. It's not the same thing at all.
Oh,
Right. So what
So,
that does though
yeah.
is that is because they have a sense of entitlement because I've played more games. I know more than you. I'm going to use these cool words that you aren't going to get. They're not going to accomplish what I want to accomplish, but makes me feel like I'm smarter because I'm using these cool words. I'm going to say Tal, the 18-year-old girl working behind the counter at the game shop's going to be like, "The that? Like, oh, this guy must be so smart," or that's
You
what's
don't know
going on.
what
That's what's going on in their head. If you say that instead of just Tails, because it's literally the same amount of time to say Tails as Tal, like you're not saving anything.
off subject. Off subject. This was brought up. I saw it in a meme. This fits right in here. What's easier to say, www or World Wide Web? We
World
always
Wide
say
Web.
www. I mean, it's legitimately harder to say, but we still say www instead of World Wide Web .outcasthavens.com. We actually don't own that, so don't go to that website. But if we did, it would be great. We'll go up to buy it. Somebody else bought it. We'll sell it to you for $1,000. We don't make any money. We can't afford that. So also within Tales of Aria, like discussing spoiler, all the I think we learned from the last set that speculation is dead wrong. I mean, until we had received Herald of Erudition and me and Dane were like, holy shit, it's gonna be an illusionist. All the other guesses were pretty wrong. I have one prediction for this set. The only prediction I will have is still gonna do it. There's got to be a Guardian. I don't see this set without a Guardian.
Oh my
All
god.
the art and Bravo's the same.
I was just gonna say, of all the things you could guess, that's the thing that I think could be wrong. Like, I like if you were to guess
I know.
Ranger,
Well,
I'd be like,
you-
yeah, probably. I mean, you see the art.
But see, that's the thing is everybody thought Wizard because of, was it Invigorating Light or Illuminate, whatever card that art is from,
Illuminate.
Yeah, that
which is like
nothing to do with it. And plus, I don't think that's a Ranger. I think that's an illusion. It looks like an illusion to me. It doesn't look real. Doesn't look real.
They got a fancy.
So here's
It's
the
not
thing.
even connected. How does it pull back and not break? The two pieces weren't even connected.
Magic, dude. It's magic.
It's Aria.
So it's a Wizard Ranger?
No. Other classes
Wizard?
have magic.
It's a Wizard.
It's a wizard.
New word.
So-
I'm looking for Wizard
Yeah,
cards.
Go ahead, Blake.
I was just gonna say, I think we're going to get a Ranger. I am just assuming it's not the one in the picture.
Yeah.
That's my assumption. I think that will be a card, but I assume that it won't be that character as a Ranger because we've been bait and switched before. We all remember the tales of Darth Doot. Darth Doot the Wise. We were so wise when we saw him, and yeah, Doot got us all super hard. So I will refuse to believe anything until I see things on a card. But my assumption is that that's not the Ranger we're getting. However, if it is, that's super cool. I'm okay with it.
Jason won't because it's not magic. So I will say though that Jason, to your point, and why I was just being a nitwit and making fun of you, but I do think that we'll get a Guardian too, because Guardian is the one class that like is, I mean, maybe other than Wizard, if people in Volcor talk about Wizards, but like Guardian's the only class that's like distinctly a thing in lore. Like, cause like the Guardians of Aria, that's a thing. Like that's like,
right.
He travels meets up with a bunch of Guardians. They fight the darkness coming out of the rift and all that. Like they're Guardians. That's what they are. So I could see like Aria definitely being where the bulk of Guardians are from.
So the official like announcements, July 27th, I believe, coming up in 3 weeks here. So that's pretty exciting. So I will say this, I'm super excited for a new set, but not nearly as excited for Monarch, just for the simple reason that I still haven't got my decks solved with Monarch. So thinking about another set adding into the mix of the stuff I don't even already have figured out. And as we saw, Bravo got cards. Reinar got cards. I mean, pretty much everybody got cards. I mean, Dash didn't get cards, but pretty much everybody else got a card they could use or two in the sets just within the generics. And if you add in another one or two generic cards to add in to these classes that we haven't figured out yet, it's craziness. It's really, is there been a time that there's been two sets this close in the life of Fab? Or
No,
is this the closest they've ever been?
It's the closest they've been, and this is their pace. This is like what they have wanted, right? It's two main sets in the supplemental set a year, so it's every 4 months. So this is what they were shooting for.
Yeah, I just hoping now that we see a supplemental set Christmas time-ish.
That'd be cool.
I think would be perfect to set off. I mean, and they could make a really cool 200, 250 card where everybody, you get a card, you get a card, he gets a card. Everybody gets at least one card from WTR through TAL. Everybody gets a card.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it'll be super fun just to have Tales of Aria come out. And I think now we've hit that point, hopefully in the game, where what will happen is a new set won't like necessarily break the rules or change the game, because I think that's the thing that we've kind of seen with Monarch is we'll see new mechanics and things like that. But what we found, I think that's interesting, at least, and maybe this is just our testing, I think that there are strong heroes. I think that Bolton is good. I think that Prism is good. I think that Levia is fine. I think Constructed, she's a little tough because, you know, the whole, you know, dying to blood debt thing is pretty scary late game. But what's interesting is we've found that like Chain is the strongest contender to come out. And the people who kind of like challenge Chain in spite of his breaking kind of all the rules of the game are heroes, maybe even from the original Welcome to Wraith set, which is interesting because it's cool because what it's done is not like break the game. We haven't power crept to where everyone's just playing the 4 new heroes. And I think that that's really important for the game to have that feel and to have that understanding as the game ages, that a new set doesn't come out and immediately invalidate the other sets.
And that's a good thing to have for the community. It keeps people involved. You have cards like Out for Muscle and Bravo, Rouse the Ancients, really legitimately get Go Again out of Bravo, which made him what he is. It makes him a lot better in some of these decks. You can actually hold hand and swing twice and have damaging effects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like the new cards add a little something to some of the old decks, and they give them some strong cards, but they don't, you know, like they're not fully supporting the set, which is okay, but they're giving them some tools to kind of tweak their decks and maybe play into the meta a little bit better. Because I think like Out for Muscle and Rouse the Ancients by themselves takes Guardian and does advance the deck to where it plays better into your decks like Chain or Prism that might have before, without that extra Go Again and that like double attack, would probably have given him, you know, those decks would have given him fits. But now he can kind of stand toe to toe with them, and that makes a big difference. So I like what they're doing so far. I think that they've hit that like the correct level of, you know, what people would call like power creep rotation, where people are playing the new heroes because they're interesting and they have some new mechanics and they're different and they're unique compared to the old stuff, but they're not automatically just better. They're just different. And that's different is good. Better is not good for the game. You don't want people to feel like if they are a Katsu lover or a fan of Dory, or they're just saying like, hey, I just like playing Reinar. He's my favorite hero and I just want to play him. You don't want those players to feel like if they refuse to play Levia, then they just can't play Brute. Like they just can't play their favorite deck. You want people to feel like they can continue to play their deck and be competitive if they're committed to it.
Yeah. I've not I I was worried because when we were first talking about what we wanted Monarch to be, it like the no mixing of attributes. We've hit on that in the past. I'm not going to dig back into that. But like the fact that I'm loving playing Katsu again, just like in the new meta, and he's still viable, still fun. Like, I mean, he just won the charity event. So like that and Viscera. So like the two characters when we first bought into the game and bought a bunch of boxes and split out characters who we wanted, they're both super fun right now. So Katsu and Viscera, and now Bolton. Then I'm setting Prism on a shelf for a little bit. I don't know if you were on when we were talking earlier, Jason, but I think Prism's taking just a wee break when I work on Bolton and Katsu.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think Prism's a little bit unsolved currently, where she can't consistently do anything quite well. There's just, if you want to play a super super strong control deck, I think Dash does it a little bit better, or Bravo. And if you want to do a super aggro deck, I think, and I've seen people, and this is, I'm going to segue right into this because I want to make fun of people as well. The chain does aggro a lot better. So chain does aggro a lot better than Dash. So in comments, you'll see people say, what? My Dash beats chain every time. Okay, maybe you do. Maybe you're playing Billy every single time, and Billy is just not as good of a player as you are, and so you beat Billy every time with your Dash. That's not the case. You're not going to beat every chain. I just guarantee you with Dash. I've played Dash enough times with my chain that I don't lose the Dash very often. So, but I don't go out there saying, oh, I beat Dash every time. I just beat a particular build of Dash more times than not 100% or any crazy numbers like that, but I do very well into it. And that brings me to the awesome event that LSS is doing right now, and that is the Devastation events that they're running. So they're basically taking some of the smartest brains in Fab and giving you the deck list. And then they're going to also show you how to properly pilot it. Now, there's some decision points that you can watch that they make that you probably will never make in a game, but it's also amazing. And somebody in the comments writes, oh, Jacob shouldn't have done that. And maybe he shouldn't have, maybe he should have. But Jacob's also ELO #1 rated player in the world currently. So I'm going to take his better judgment of it was the right decision. He broke the Achilles accelerators early. He is expecting his boost to hit. If he only has 3-4 cards that aren't boost, I would have broke him early as well and kept going with the pressure. You can't take pressure off of an OTK or what looks like is going to be an OTK. You have to keep pressuring him. So I just thought that was funny. He's one of the best players in the world. So if whoever made that comment goes out and wins the next 4 callings to get the ELO, equal to his, then we'll start listening and do it with Dash, because you're amazing with Dash. That's all I got on that.
Jacob's got the hardware. I mean,
yeah,
I think that's how it goes, right? Jacob's got the hardware. So when you can, match or beat his number of trophies that are on the shelf behind him, then you're allowed to criticize him. Until then, you probably don't have the right to criticize. No, I mean, I think everybody too. I think the other issue is watching those games sometimes. One of my pet peeves, and the reason I often don't comment on videos like that, is if you're watching a game and you can see the whole game and you can see the results of the game and you can see the hands of the players, it's really easy to make a critical comment about somebody making a mistake. But oftentimes my decision points are made on, my hand, because when I'm playing against somebody, I don't have knowledge of their hand. I can't make a critical decision based on my opponent's hand, because guess what? I don't get to see in the game my opponent's hand. So like making a critical comment about somebody's play line when you see both players' hand and you have like an understanding of how the game is built and what people are trying to accomplish. I don't know. I mean, that's, I think Andrew from Dice Commander just put something out about the fact that he's like, we have lots of fun and we record locals, but hey, maybe chill on like commenting on people's things. Like it's cool if you want to make comments about helping people understand play lines, but don't be a dick, because people like to make critical comments because it makes them feel good. But at the end of the day, like, I'm sorry, but what Matt Rogers and Jacob Pearson, they're the calling champions. Everybody else can just suck it. So,
and the people that are like critical to be dicks are the people that will call it Tal.
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
No, those are not.
They are superior. They're
The
superior.
critical dicks are going to call it Toa. They're going to call it Toa.
No. They'll call it Tal because that's what it's going to say on the bottom of the card, and it's Tal.
Fine. I'm changing it to Tall. I call Monarch Mon. Hey Mon, can I get some Mon?
You got any Mon in stock? Yeah.
You got any Mon?
That. People don't call it
Need
that.
some
either.
Mon.
People call it Tails.
I just call it Monarch.
Yeah.
Tails. I'm just gonna call it Kingdoms, and they're gonna have to know what I mean. So I'm going the opposite. I'm just gonna keep calling it Kingdoms.
But refuse
when
to change.
Yeah.
Changes for losers.
I'm not changing. No,
I change for nobody.
Straight Kingdoms all day, every day. Straight Kingdoms it out. But I will say that watching that series as it unfolds, I'm actually really excited. I was going to check here in a little bit because I think that it looks like they're going to release one a day pretty much. And there's a lot of matchups they're going to have to do with everybody drafting 3 heroes. And I'm most excited to see what Kano Classic Constructed build comes out. Because I just tried to build one janky one, but I don't know where to start with that. And I would love to play some Kano and Classic Constructed. But with these new sets and with Reinhard going out, maybe taking your whole hand and hitting you for 15 on turn 1 or 2, that's like he can Half-Life you. And that feels bad. You just can't come back from that, even with Kano. There's just not enough arcane out there. So I'm curious what they do to remedy some of that.
I wonder who's running what. I'd be really curious to see like who wanted to.
They did a draft.
They drafted, yeah.
I know, but I'm saying I'm wondering like who ended up like who really wanted Kano or was Kano like
He was the
last
nobody
kid in the basketball court. Like,
nobody
I don't
wanted
run that in CC.
That's what happened. Nobody picked him. He was what was left. When they put the draft on and everybody went through and drafted, he was what was left.
So the way that it's working, the way that it's working, we will not see another Dash gameplay because that Dash was eliminated.
Yep.
Correct? Yeah. All right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's they said the matchups they're going to be paired until there's either one hero or one dev with multiple heroes left. Yep.
So now
that would be the ultimate win con, is being the last player but having all 3 of your decks still alive.
So does Jason need to play Viserai now until he loses, or does he swap in between, like in the next game? Can he be like, all right, in this game I'm gonna run? I don't know.
I think the heroes are being matched up, not the players.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. I'm with you.
Yep. So it's like a hero bracket.
Yep.
And then if at some point, it's like Jacob is the only one left or Jason's the only one left.
That made sense. I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a fun series. It's cool to see some of the takes, because I think there are, to Jason's point, there are some heroes like Viserai who I think a lot of people look at him and they're like, he's interesting, but what do you do to finish? Like, we've been playing, Raiden Bolton, right? Like with the saber or with the sword. And I think the thing about the deck is, like, there are moments where you feel like you're just completely in control. But then there are interesting moments where if you kind of lose tempo, what do you do? Like, how do you win that game? And I think with Viserai, like, there's this feeling of, Sonata Arcanix is the moment, because you have the potential to throw, 5 arcane at them from putting 5 actions in your hand like Jason did, and then you attack and you throw 18 arcane at them and then a 7 attack, and you go again into another attack, and you have this just massive blowout turn, and then you just go, what's next? How do I win from this point? It's kind of like a game where you had all of your attrition early, and then I had all of my attrition in the middle, and now we're both kind of trapped in this war of 11 health or less. So you didn't actually win, and I think that's why Chain is so scary a lot of times, is because he feels like he's kind of losing the attrition game early, and you often get behind, by 5 or 6, sometimes 10 life, and you'll be behind in the game, and then you start to have those 4 and 5 shackle turns where you just hit and you're able to really close the gap. The difference is at that point, your opponent has effectively given up tempo to you because you had a huge turn that brought the life totals even, but your turns are getting stronger because if you can just keep 2 cards in hand, you've got the blues to pay for everything coming out of Blood Debt, and your opponent is having to give up 2 or 3 cards and now playing on a 1-card hand. And Viserai has this kind of weird feeling of, once the Sonata Arcanix turn happens, how does he win that game? Like, what does he do that's super powerful after Sonata Arcanix? Right. Because he can't have it again. He could theoretically have a 4 or 5 flip turn, but if he whiffs, then it's just over, or
I mean,
so it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see some of these.
That end of that game was a major grind.
Super grindy.
Yeah.
I like that Viserai build a lot, just because it feels like it's got more. It's not a one and done. Like the way that it's built, like you definitely have follow up. Like especially if you're pitching like your Enlightened Strikes early, stuff like that. Like if you can get those back into deck, like I feel like it's got a lot. I still think it doesn't compete with Chain, because like to your point, it's like no matter what you do, if you're building shackles, Chain is just getting stronger. Like it's just happening. He's getting a better turn every turn, basically, at the cost of his deck.
Yeah, especially when pitched correctly.
Which I think Viserai is doing too, like as he's building his rune chants. But the issue is that has a backstop. Right, which is what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that Viserai has a backstop, and then it's just a slog afterwards. And I kind of am interested to play that matchup once. Well, I have the deck built, but like once we get together or have time, because I wonder with like the slow ramp of Chain, and like the willingness to block out with Viserai, if Viserai does it faster and can end it on his clap. Like when it goes off, if he can end it, because you can pull a ton of cards to hand, and then if you're running, if you just have like 2 Mavrins in hand, like that's, or you have like the Rouse the Ancients and Enlightened Strikes, like just ways to like really elongate your go wide, like that's silliness.
Yeah.
So I think that he might have a good.
I will say
shot into Chain, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was interesting because I think the one thing about the Viserai Dash matchup was it ended super close, and that was Jacob playing with 0 Arcane Barrier. So if he was capable of stopping, 3 here and 4 there, and maybe even on the turn where he got really hammered by that big attack, where he took 18, it's like he just took 18. It's possible he could have looked at his hand and gone, well, I'll pitch 2 blues to stop 6 of it, and then I'll block 6 physical, and efficiently blocked out the turn and ended with like 12 more health. And then the game is like runaway for Dash. Like he's so far ahead. And I mean, mathematically, it seems like it should have been impossible for him on his boosts when he has 3 Tome of Fendals on his deck to hit 2 of his 3 tomes on boost is just insane. It's such bad luck. And I think that's the thing, is like Dash is really good as long as you don't get hosed by your boost randomly just whiffing. But the math says that you shouldn't, and maybe that's an argument for saying, is Tome really worth it in that build? If you're trying to boost and be really aggressive, is Tome even worth letting be a part of the deck, or is it a side out card when you know you're playing a matchup where you need to be more aggressive?
It'll be interesting to see as I go, because one is we probably won't see Viserai versus Chain because Jason drafted both of them. He's got Lavia, Viserai, Chain. He was the second draft. Jacob took Bravo first. I think that, I mean, we'll see with him piloting Bravo. I mean, he could win it. I mean, they're all with their best ones. Jason loves Chain the best. Carol's got Rhinar. Newsom's got Katsu. So they have the decks they want. So it'll be curious to see when they each get a shot with their favorite decks, which they think are the best decks. That'll be the matchups that I'll be most interested in.
To see that.
Yeah.
I mean, they make the game. I mean, they literally are making the game. So they're trying to create these interactions that we're trying to build. Obviously they will make that interaction and then make the card pool, and then we try to discover that after they make that. So I'm pumped to see what they come up with, and I'm sure we're coming into the calling season. I think it kind of gives you a preview of pretty much all the decks, and I don't know of any company going into a big event like this just as like, usually they're like, oh, here's a starter guide to a okay deck of what you can do. And Legend Story Studios just like, well, here's probably the best deck for this guy. See what you can do with it, because we're going to build it right here. But a very highly tuned deck of some of the obviously some of the best people that could be playing them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that I think by putting it out there and giving us these really well-tuned decks, what they're doing is presenting really high quality product and really high quality deck lists that will allow people to adjust them for personal play style, because I think that Fab, maybe more than any game I've ever played, allows for some adjustments for personal preference to be made and still have a deck feel tier 1 and top tier and running at its peak. I think that there are cards that you have to include in a deck to make it good. I don't think that you can play Viserai without the Bloodsheath Sonata Arcanix interaction. I think that interaction is too powerful to omit from the deck and still have the deck be a top tier deck. I think the same could be said of certain combo lines in Katsu, or you would never take out Seeds or Riftbind from Chain. There are just certain cards and certain decks that are top tier. But I think when you get to that 80 and you last 10 to 12, maybe even 15, there's a lot of room for personal preference in your play style, how you like to play. Maybe you want a couple more things that are a little more defensive, or a couple more things that have interesting interactions and kind of maybe they're shocking to your opponent. That's your little bit of spice that you throw in that can kind of catch your opponent off guard. And I think that by them presenting these decks to us, what they're saying is they don't want Road to Nats or the calling seasons to be about what are the 10 best, or what are the 10 players that can find the unique interactions and that they can win based on certain deck. What they're saying is we want the best players and the best pilots to win our events. We don't want tier 1 decks. We want tier 1 pilots, because they're saying, here's a perfect deck list. Go win with it. So what that ends up doing is saying, if everybody's playing best deck lists, best pilots win.
Or people that are best able to make the meta call or get, best the most, whatever it is. I think that to that point, I like that a lot. That holy shit, my train of thought is gone. It completely poofed like mid-sentence. Yeah, anyways, Jason?
No, I think I know where you're going with that. Except for that, when you lost your train of thought, you stole mine and took it with it.
Okay.
Down the wrong tracks, going
Blake,
the wrong way.
Say what you just said all over again.
No.
Okay.
Here's the deal. I will say that as far as making a meta call, I will make the meta call right now. You're going to see every single deck there. Maybe not Wizard. Maybe some of you crazy will bring a Kano. Maybe not Lavia. but I'm sure somebody will.
Oh,
You'll
that's
see
a good
every
idea.
single deck at the callings. Every single deck at the callings. What are you going to see more of? You'll probably see more chains. Our country loves Dory and Katsu, so you're going to see more of them. You'll see a handful of Rhiners. God, that's a new way of saying that. Handful of Rhiners.
They all Reiner.
You'll see a handful of Bravos, maybe more. I think if as people learn how to play him more, because you think he's easy, but he's not always easy to win with, because you have to be very disciplined and know still how to block every different deck. That I like it where it's not a blitz meta where you're going in having to call the exact meta. You can prepare your deck for aggro. I mean, a good deck should be a mid-range deck that can go a little more aggro and a little bit more control orientated. I mean, I think that's a good deck build, with the exception of a few like Chain. Like if you're going control with Chain, you just need to play a different deck. But other than that, know what your deck can do, sideboard properly, because you're gonna see them all. There's no way you don't see all the decks at this event. There's gonna be people run prisms. Not a fan. There'll be people running her. I just think she's gonna struggle unless they have a very good aura package and know how to run it into a Rhinar or into a Bravo. So it's cool because the meta call won't have to be as important. You're just going to want to know what the top 2 decks are so you can sideboard just that much more for those top 2-3 decks.
Well, pre-sideboarding this game makes a huge difference too. With 2 of the callings being on the constructed meta, you're gonna put yourself in a position. And I mean, we have Rodinats coming up, which is going to be constructed. I think you run into the situation where we have to keep in mind that it's really important to understand sideboarding and properly sideboarding into certain decks. And some decks present a challenge. To Jason's point, Prism presents a little bit of a challenge because she can play multiple styles, but I think you could sideboard into the one that's the worst matchup for your deck and then just kind of benefit from the other, because she seems to have matchups where you're like, okay, this is the one that'll probably give me fits, so I'm going to sideboard for this one. And then if it's the other one, then I probably just win anyway. And I think that you're going to have, that's going to be, again, I think that's very pilot centric, which is what Fab is a very pilot centric game that rewards, especially in the constructed meta, rewards very good pilots and people who understand how to sideboard correctly and approach a matchup correctly. And that, I mean, that's all I've ever wanted in a game, is a game where I get rewarded for outplaying my opponent. And I think that Fab does that. You don't often end a game where you go, man, if I just drawn this one card, or if I had just not drawn this one card, I would have just won or I would have lost. It's, you have those moments where you feel like, God, this turn got away from me, and people can have God hands, but in constructed, it's, it's not as significant.
So you're not going to be on Chain for the callings, you don't think?
I mean,
just,
I like playing Chain.
If I can just get to the 10 card hand, if I can just, if I flip a ton of seeds,
no, but so
that's pilot centric.
Yeah, I'll argue that
I'm
point.
rewarded for being a good pilot.
Playing in the mirror, I blocked a ton more because of the chain can be RNG fest 100%. So you have to make sure you set your deck up properly, which means you're not going to go as aggro and do another chain possibly, because you need to pitch properly at the beginning of the game. And then you might be blocking 2-3 cards against the other player to not take all that damage. Well, they're taking a less optimal line, trying to just out aggro you, but then getting screwed on 5 blood debt because they weren't being patient and took damage trying to push off these big turns. So then they miss on their 5 blood debt. You hit 2 or 3 and you get to that 6-7 blood debt where you get around to your deck and just boom, there you go. There's my Seeds Rift Bind turn, 18 damage with an Eclipse. Suck it, I win. I'm going to the next round.
Yeah, I think that if you play a good chain player versus a bad chain player, you have a very different experience. Because a bad chain player will go Seeds into Riftbind or Plunder run Seeds Riftbind turn 2, and it's fine. But a disciplined chain player will arsenal the plunder run maybe for 2 or 3 turns and find ways to pitch seeds and riftbind together, because ideally on the 6th turn on 6 shackles you're flipping 4 of those. You want to be flipping 4 of those seeds and hitting a riftbind in there, having a plunder in your arsenal, and just daring someone to find a way to block it. It's like, you can't block my turn. There's no way you can do it. And that's what makes the deck good, is properly pitching the deck. Early on, I did a ton of just playing seeds casually to get a bounding out or to get a riftbind off for 5, because I'm like, oh, 5 is an awkward number to block. You know what's way worse than 5 to block is when you play the game correctly and then I flip 5 seeds in a riftbind and I go, cool, riftbind for 3 arcane and 11 damage, because I put them all where they needed to be. Every turn I put seeds on the bottom of my deck, and then I unhollowed rights and I tucked another seeds and I enlightened strike and I tucked a riftbind. You'd even see me put the riftbind on the bottom of my deck. I did it with an enlightened strike, so that way it would be in there, but you wouldn't even know it was coming if you paid attention. And I think that like chain rewards proper pitching, whereas other decks reward proper like sequencing of cards to be played.
Same with Katsu, you can't just throw an attack because it's good. You want to make sure that you're hitting your combo pieces when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the chain Katsu game is interesting because you have to make sure you give them one big attack, because the worst case scenario in chain is going, oh, I'll give you a 5 of this, and they go, cool, red flick flack, and you go, and I'll give you a 5 of that, and they go, cool, a combo card block 5, and now they have a 2-card hand with an arsenal and a tunic up, and you go, great, I literally didn't do anything. Like, I didn't take enough cards from your hand to win this game. But if you give them 5 arcane before like a 10 attack, that's significantly more powerful because the flick flack's never going to get triggered.
Well, I also don't know that I've ever played into your guys' chains and seen, like, outside of the guy you just said the card, that the benefits off seeds. Riftbind. Outside of Riftbind, I feel like you hit me for 3s and 4s 4 times a turn. And that's like what
it's your meets and greets and your consuming volitions. That's why you have those. I feel
like there. Maybe it's just the decks I play, and that's how you play into like all of my decks. But I've never seen a 3 into a 10, and then that's the end of turn. It's usually a 3 into a 10 into a 4 into a 2, a rune chance into a 2. Like,
well, sometimes.
Okay, I'll pat Jason on the back. Yeah, I'll pat Jason on the back. I think the 2 of us pilot chain well. Hopefully, Dane, you don't go to a calling and you're not surprised, like, God, I've never played a chain this well piloted. You're like, geez, these noobs are piloting this.
I was just
shit.
like, where? No, I was just wondering. I'm like, where are these turns where you attack once and it's over? Like, Jesus, let me play against that turn. Once.
Hey, I think that's not against Katsu as much as it is against a chain mirror. You can't just take all the damage every turn. If you do, you're gonna lose. Then you are racing in an RNG fest. If you both just stop, it's just not good.
I think it's really it's interesting too, because I think that the chain stuff is so it's weird because chain Katsu is very funky because you're both trying to do the same things, and it ends up being about who can have like the biggest turn at the most optimal time. The chain mirror is about the block. The Bravo with chain is 100% about, can Bravo time the perfect Spinal Crush or Crippling Crush and just like strip your hand at the wrong time, or take Go Again away when you're gonna like, oh cool, I took 4 and now I'm gonna have all this blood debt that I can't clear because you took away Go Again. And then Dorinthia is just about like, can I survive to a turn where I can absolutely capitalize on 6 shackles, or do I just die before I ever get there? Because like, how in that matchup, there's something to be said for the fact that you're like, I'm just going to put in the husk and I'm going to pray to God that I can get to 5 or 6 shackles, and then I just hit the nuts and I take the tempo at the correct time and I'm ahead. But even then, you're playing a dangerous game of like just handing counters to Dorinthia if you don't block out correctly. So
what's weird is I think chain is probably the top deck in Classic Constructed, but I don't think he's going to win either one of the callings.
I could buy that. Chain is an interesting deck because I think Chain will be widely represented in the field and reasonably represented in the top cut. I could see a top 8 where there's 2 Chains.
Yeah.
And that's
Or
it.
3.
But Chain
I
is the
could see
number 1
3.
represented deck in the field.
Yeah.
Talking to Kale after he played in the Card Merchant, he lost with Bravo. If Chain hits all of their Art Wars and Shadow Puppetries, you're probably going to win as a Chain player. If you hit those and your Lightning Strikes, like I've had where you've hit, 6 out of those 9, you don't lose if you hit 6 out of those 9. Now, if you banish all your Art of Wars and you banish all your Shadow Puppetries, yeah, Bravo will probably beat you. Probably beat you pretty easily too, because you're not going to put on the big pressure where you can do a 7-8 attack where they have to block 2-3 cards. If they only have to block with 1 card and can still swing 3 cards with Bravo, you're just going to lose. So I think that's why I feel Chain's a top deck, but even with pitch properly, you could still shackle away your Enlightened Strikes, your Shadow Puppetries, and your Art of Wars. Your 9 cards that early game just kill other decks. So, and I think that's where, is it Bravo? Because I think people learn, you don't block Katsu properly, he's gonna hurt you.
Oh yeah,
But if
Katsu
you
will punish non-block.
Yeah, but if you block Katsu properly, it's very frustrating to the Katsu player. Like, why are you blocking this perfect? Because it can hurt the Katsu player.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's, to, like Blake said, you got to pilot, you got to know your matchups. I mean, I still see a 1 card block. I've watched it on, I've watched a couple videos, Dory Bravo, and I've seen 1 card blocks on a Naked Dawnblade. I'm like, what are you doing? Why?
So, you know what it is? So I just had this revelation, and I think it's why, like, I like playing into, like, I don't know, Jason, if you played a ton of Dorinthia, but like Blake, you playing Dorinthia versus you playing Chain. I don't have a problem playing into Dorinthia. I feel like there's a skill set to playing into Dorinthia. Like there's a definite art to knowing when and where to block, when to take the damage, when to not trigger. They've been sitting on a card in Arsenal, when to make sure you don't trigger that reprise that's going to hurt you and elongate their turn. Like, that is fun. That's fun to me. I like doing that. There is always an art to blocking in every matchup. I get that, but Chain, it's like you're not shutting anything off. It's like, okay, I'm gonna block this Arcane because he might run Meet and Greet or he pitched one earlier. That's like the decision point of like, do I block or do I not, or what do I block with? There's like none of that. It's like, all right, I'm gonna hit you for this much. I've got, I'm banishing 5 and I've got 3 in hand. Like, no art, just gonna take this or throw this at you. You know what I mean? Like, there's not really a ton of that, like, art to the back and forth like there is with Dorinthia. And it's one of the reasons I know we were complaining about Dorinthia in Blitz, but I personally didn't mind playing into Dorinthia. It was a challenge for sure, but I thought it was fun.
Complain about Dorinthia. I complain about Ira, but I never complain about Dorinthia. Dorinthia is fine. If Dorinthia draws the nuts on you and Blitz,
I have all of them saved.
Oh, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, with Dorinthia, if she draws the nuts in Blitz, she's going to do damage no matter how artful your block is. They can just do some stuff that is damaging in Blitz. But if they draw the nuts in CC, then they have to make a decision of, am I going to blow it all on this turn 2 of the game? And if it's used equipment and somebody knows what they're doing, I lose. I only have 2 more of those cards left in this of a 8. I'm only drawn 5 cards, 6 cards off my deck. Yeah, it's different. But yeah, in CC, Dorinthia definitely, she'll still probably be represented well, because if she's piloted properly, she's going to get poorly blocked a couple times, or catches a couple good hands, or pitched a couple good hands to get a huge end of game turn. If you don't finish her off, she'll punish you if you're not saving armor for that. But she'll be top 8, I would think, at both callings. I don't know about Bravo. It just depends. In America, we don't seem to like him enough to get him to a top 8.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I've found to be very true of almost every card game, I've ever played is that decks that cycle hard or decks that see a lot of their deck tend to be really good. Like they're very efficient and they're very good at playing the game because they have a tremendous amount of knowledge and they're able to do things that maybe other decks don't. The decks, it's funny because as much as Chain is considered like RNG, Chain is very reliant on a good pilot putting the deck in a really good spot late game, and that's how you win, is by piloting it correctly early, you win late game. Katsu is the same kind of way. It's that sneak up on you damage that messes with you. It's that, and again, it can be improperly blocked, but even when you properly block it, sometimes you go, okay, I'm going to protect against Ancestral. If they have Razor, they have it, but then Razor hits you and you're like, oh God, this turn is going to spiral really fast. And I think that that's the difference, is the reason that, as much as I love Dorinthia and I think she's really good at times, the reason I think New Zealanders and Australians who have played this game a lot longer than us and have maybe had more in-person experience than us, the reason they often say that they're not as blown away by Dory is because a lot of Dorinthia's stuff can be taken away by simply choosing to not block. By just not blocking from hand, or by arsenaling a defense reaction and shoving armor in front of it. Like, it really puts the deck in a weird spot. Whereas I don't care, as somebody who's been playing a ton of Chain lately, borderline would consider myself a Chain player. I will say I don't particularly care what you do. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And on turn 6 or 7, if you let me get there, I'm probably going to kill you if you don't have 25 health. Like, if you're sub 25, like if you're 20 or less, if you're in the teens, like, you're in a really, really bad spot, and I'm in a very advantageous situation because I'm gonna pop off Seeds into Riftbinds and to Howl from Beyonds and things where the turn is going to get really out of hand, and I'm gonna demand that you give me your entire hand. I'm still gonna shove through 5 or 10 damage, and then you're gonna have to just drop and pass back. And I think that that's what Katsu does very well, is like, even a good block into Katsu can be punished by mistiming your guess on Razor Reflex, because you have to block things. And at times you like, there are times you're like, okay, I'm not going to block the Surging because I think Whelming Gust Wave is coming. And then the first thing they do is you let Surging hit and you're like, they've got it anyway. And they pitch away and you're like, oh God, they didn't have Whelming. They've got Mugenshi. Oh no, like, this is bad. And if you had just blocked the Surging, and then other times you block the Surging and then they just play the Whelming anyway, and you're like, I can't even block all of this or I don't get a turn, and you get punished for guessing incorrectly. Whereas with Dorinthia, you can just say no block and sometimes just stop their turn from being gross.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, it's just my comparison was just in how it feels to sit across from a deck playing into you.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Sitting across from Chain, just, I'm not complaining because I have no problems playing him into him. Like, it's a fun matchup always anyways, but sitting across from him is less fun than sitting across from a Dorinthia or sitting across from a Katsu to me. Just, yeah, I think it's there's less going back and forth there of like,
yeah,
the mental games, like to what you love, Blake. Like, there's less mental what do I, don't I. It's like, okay, you've got one floating a card in hand, or you played a 1 or 0 cost, Rune Blade attack without making a shackle first, and your Snapdragons are gone. It's like, okay, cool, like 100% gonna Razor this because you've got, you know what I mean? Like, they just reads like that. But outside of that, like, you don't really have a ton of reactions or anything. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I don't mind seeing Chain though.
Chain gonna Chain.
I'd expect to see a lot of Katsus at the callings here in the US, especially the first one. Who knows what'll happen in the second one, because we'll be under Kingdoms by then. Yep, still calling it Kingdoms. So once that comes out,
it's Tal.
Toa.
Yeah.
Bro, get it on that Toa life.
It's my kin. It'll say kin on the bottom. Kin.
It'll be hilarious. They're gonna call it Tales of Aria, but it's gonna be KIN. Will be the
kin on the bottom. It'll be amazing.
We're at 54 minutes, so.
Oh, we're good. Yeah. So other than that, I got about 18 more things I want to cover before we finish off tonight's podcast. No. It'll be like I said, I'm excited for Kingdoms to come out, but at the same time, like it's kind of going to take a back seat. We've been jamming so many games. We had a nice 6-hour session in person on Monday, plus our live stream. I played Chris on lunch. I've played him a couple nights in the evenings. Might meet up with Nick tomorrow and jam some games. So I'm trying to get in any spare moment. I'm throwing a fab game in. No idea what I'm playing. Bravo and Chain, going back and forth consistently on it. Bravo, I just know what's going to happen. Chain, I don't. That's the only difference. I know I can see every card in Bravo. In Chain, you're not going to see 15 to 20 cards possibly if they come out at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've it's interesting because I was kind of the other way. I think at first I was like, I don't know about Chain with his RNG, but the more games I've played him and like really focused in super hard on the proper pitch and that kind of stuff with him, it started to feel more like I'm able to predict the late game. And then all I have to do is kind of manage the RNG of the mid game, having a bad 3 shackle turn where I don't have a ton of pressure to put on. How do I manage that turn and put enough pressure or create enough of an awkward scenario for my opponent and that I can still control the tempo enough and keep the game close enough that I can win it late. So that's kind of like I played, we had our 6-hour testing session on Monday, and then Tuesday I went to the source before locals at 4:30 and played from 4:30 until we were done there, and then came home and streamed. So it's been just trying to figure out the deck I want to play. So
Dane, are you fully on Katsu?
I'd say
Or
it's
no?
probably 80% chance I play Katsu. Yeah. I mean, I get my boy back, man. Like he's viable. He's good, and I want to keep playing him. I don't think I ever. Like, I never took the deck apart fully. Like I always kind of wanted, and then new toys came out and played around, but got a little fire lit under my butt. So
Yeah.
I've been liking playing Katsu again. But I will
thanks to Mr. Classic.
What's that?
I said thanks to Mr. Classic. That's Kieran's name on TTS.
Yeah.
So it's on there.
Yeah.
Mr. Classic.
It was definitely good to see him pilot that victory.
Next Tuesday, I will try to stream our locals with our CC on Tuesday before we stream our normal TTS session.
Yeah. So for everyone listening to this right now, the first 45 minutes of the live stream next Tuesday will be me, and we will be talking. So bring some popcorn, and then when Jason and Blake get home around 10:15, then we'll start the live stream games.
We can always just push the live stream start time back to 10 o'clock. It's been done before.
I
It's
mean,
a possibility.
Yeah. Okay. How far away are you from the shop?
You know what?
Jason?
I'm 45 minutes. I will say, if people would
10
just...
10 o'clock will work. That'll do it.
I'm just going to throw this out to people. I don't know what we're at, but if we get another 120 subs or so, somewhere between 120 and 150, we can do our community posts and just post on there from YouTube exactly what time the live stream was starting that day. So if it is going to be 10 versus 9:30, we'd have the community post. So if you're not subscribing, why the hell not? I mean, Jesus Christ, help us out. Help us send the message to the community.
I will say that there has been so many times where I've been like, God, I wish I could just like post to our YouTube wall or something like that, and just like
the channel.
Just 1,000 subs. We just gotta. And I've been. I don't even care.
Close.
I don't care if we get there. You unlock it, and then 150 of you unsubscribe. I just want that tool. Just give me that.
Yes, that tool is amazing.
If we get it and then lose it, and then like we lose subs, but we still have the tool, I'd be happy. Just let me do that.
The tool is amazing. Legitimately is amazing tool.
Anyways, everybody, thank you for joining us for yet another week. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Would love to see that number finally hit 1,000 so we can do that.
150 more.
Is that what we're at?
Yeah, we're at 850, 150.
Okay.
150, that's all we need.
So that's our goal. And then when we do, I've also been commissioning Matt from one of my buddies who works for Blizzard Entertainment. He is also a graphic artist and has been working on a mat for us. And that's going to be a part of the, once we hit 1,000 subs, a giveaway, as well as possibly up for sale, depending on people's thoughts on it. But really excited about that too, just to have for myself. So if you guys want it, subscribe. And then be sure to check out our live streams Tuesday nights. This will be the warning ahead of time that it possibly may be 10 next week. But that's okay.
It's got to be close to 52. We got to be getting close to a year, aren't we?
Yeah,
did
we're
47.
closing.
Yep, 48 is this next week.
5 more. We're a month away.
But yeah, be sure to join us for our live streams and to check out any of our other videos that we put out. I know that has tapered off a little bit. I'm just super busy. I got my painting stuff back up. But outside of that, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to y'all next time. Peace.